everybody! It's that wonderful time of year again when it's really cold and you just want to curl up in your bed with a nice warm cup of cocoa instead of going into your cold office. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. I am back today to give you all some history on our Christmas traditions and symbols. So sit back, have yourself your own cup of hot cocoa, and enjoy. So of course, one of the most well-known symbols of Christmas is the Christmas tree. People have actually been decorating trees since ancient pagan times. Back then, they would leave offerings on pine trees for the gods in the hope the sun would return. And because pine trees don't die in the winter, they came to symbolize eternal life. Now, 16th century Germans are credited with bringing pine trees into the home and decorating them. In the 1800s, German-born immigrants and German-born Prince Albert, the consort of Queen Victoria, helped make Christmas trees popular throughout the United Kingdom and the United States. But did you know Prince Albert was not the first person in the royal family to bring a Christmas tree into a palace? In fact, George III's consort, Queen Charlotte, brought over the tradition as she too was from Germany. Now, she brought in a yew tree into Windsor Castle instead of a fir tree, but by then the Germans were decorating their trees with paper flowers, candles, and sweets. And they continued their popularity all the way up until today, and now we have electric lights and fake trees too. Another tradition that we have is the Yule log, and some of you might watch it on TV, or maybe you're lucky enough to have a real fireplace in your home. But the Yule log started in pre-Christian Scandinavia, when the Norse would put a big log into their homes, sometimes even a whole tree, and burn them for up to 12 days. And burning these logs was meant to celebrate the return of the sun and the longer days that came with the winter solstice. When the Catholic Church set the day of Christmas to December 25th in the 4th century, it is likely that the Yule log became entwined with the story of the Christmas star. Christians would burn the Yule log from Christmas Day until Twelfth Night on January 5th. And as for the Yule log that we see on TV, that originated in 1966 when it was first aired on WPIX TV. Next, we have the tradition of writing letters to Santa, which I'm sure you did as a kid and your kids also do. In the 19th century, when Santa was still seen as a disciplinarian, it was actually parents who would write letters posing as Santa to their children, telling them how they can improve their behavior from over the last year. After the Civil War, when the cost of postage started to decline, children actually started to view the U.S. Postal Service as a legitimate service to write letters to Santa. Images of Santa in magazines would also help popularize the idea of writing him letters in the minds of children. At first, children would ask for more practical items, but as time went on, the gifts that they asked for became more elaborate and fun. At first, the letters that the post office would receive would usually end up in the dead letter office, but eventually local charity groups started to participate and answer these letters and gave children gifts to go with them. The post office would eventually institute Operation Santa Claus, in which they reply to children's letters by giving them gifts. Now, something else that Christmas is known for, and maybe you have never participated in this yourself, or maybe you're annoyed by it, but it is the tradition of caroling. Caroling is thought to come from the ancient tradition of wassailing. The word wassail comes from either the Old Norse or Anglo-Saxon, depending on your sources. It means to be in good health or to be well. Back in ancient times, people would go wassailing, and this is when they would go door to door, wishing their neighbors good health, or they would go and bless the orchards and the fields in hopes of having a good harvest for the next year. St. Francis of Assisi is credited with incorporating cheerful songs into Christmas masses. People would continue to sing these songs throughout the holiday season and pass them down from generation to generation. Eventually, they did start to be written down in the late medieval period. At some point, it is believed that singing these songs and wassailing combined together and made our modern-day caroling. Another favorite tradition is kissing under the mistletoe. Mistletoe has a very long history. Many groups in the ancient world ascribed magical and medicinal properties to mistletoe. The Celtic Druids believed mistletoe could heal illnesses, as well as help them see the future. The ancient Greeks believed mistletoe could promote fertility, so they incorporated it into the ancient festival of Saturnalia, as well as into marriage ceremonies, which is where the idea of kissing under the mistletoe comes from. The Romans believed mistletoe would promote peace and would decorate with it during midwinter. In Norse mythology, the goddess Frigga was said to have brought back her dead son under a mistletoe, and from then on she declared that anyone that passed under a mistletoe would receive a kiss. And hence that's where our tradition comes from today. Next up we have the ever-faithful gingerbread. Now, whether you like to just decorate a gingerbread house or you actually like to eat it is, I'm sure, up for debate. But the spice ginger itself has been around since ancient times, when it was used for flavoring food as well as for medicinal purposes. Now, the decorated gingerbread cookies that we think of today got their start in the Middle Ages when they were sold at fairs. They of course wouldn't be sold just at Christmas, they would be sold throughout the year, and it's believed that Queen Elizabeth I helped make the decorating of these cookies even more popular. Gingerbread houses can trace their origins to 16th century Germany, and the tale of Hansel and Gretel by the Brothers Grimm only helped to increase their popularity. Gingerbread eventually came to the US when it was brought over by English colonists. And of course, lastly, we have the ugly Christmas sweater. So, where did this one come from? Well, they kind of got their start in the 1950s when Christmas-themed pullovers were being sold and were known as Jingle Bell sweaters. They eventually became more popular in the 80s thanks to Christmas movies like Christmas Vacation. They did have a resurgence in the early 2000s when an ugly Christmas sweater themed party was held in Vancouver, and they just kind of took off from there, and they've just gotten more and more crazy as the years went on. I think this is one of the cuter ones. But if you have your own ugly sweater, feel free to rock that. You all have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you all next time.